This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending the Patchogue-Medford Libraries program. Is a real ID for me. Tonight
This conference will now be recorded.
we're here with Patty Artesa, the Regional Director of Public and Government Affairs. Just want to make a couple quick announcements. There is a chat box feature available on the right-hand side, usually of your computer, so I'll be monitoring that throughout the program. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in there, any feedback. Also, if you could keep your microphones muted unless you would like to say something, or towards the end, we'll save a few minutes for question and answer. And the library has lots of virtual programs going on. Next week, there's a Wild Alaska program. We have a Create a Cannoli program, which you can pick up a kit for to make your own cannoli at home. There's also the Stony Brook Healthy Hour that's going to be starting next week on Tuesdays at 12. And you can check out all these programs and register on our website. And I'll put that information in the chat box as well. So I want to thank Patty for your time, and I'll pass it on over to you.
Thank you very much, Crystal. I appreciate it. And I'm so happy to be doing this with you. Good evening, everyone. I hope you're enjoying this beautiful weather we've had this summer. And like I mentioned, we're going to be covering Real ID. What is Real ID? In 2005, the United States passed the Real ID Act. This act established security standards for document requirements, insurance standards for federal recognition, aligned state agencies with new security criteria for licenses and IDs. So digitalized photos, full legal name. And what I mean by full legal name, I was surprised when I went for my Real ID. I had to put Patricia Marie and spell out my full middle name and Kipper Artesa, so it made for a very long name on the driver's license. Also your date of birth, your signature, and your permanent place of residency. What does all this mean? It prohibits certain federal agencies from accepting non-Real ID licenses or IDs. To board federally regulated commercial aircrafts, TSA would be asking for this information. If you're needed to access certain federal facilities, or if for some reason you needed access to nuclear power plants. How do I know what a Real ID is? If you look for the stars in the right upper hand corner of the state issued driver's license and state ID, just like it showed on this slide. No, thank you. So let me go back to it again, just so that you can see, the digital photos, the full legal name, the date of birth, the signature, and your permanent place of residency. And again, what does it mean? It prohibits certain federal agency from accepting non-Real ID licenses or IDs. To board federally regulated commercial aircrafts, TSA will ask for this. To access certain federal facilities, and again, if you wanted access to a nuclear power plant. And again, how do you know? You look for the star in the upper right-hand corner of the state-issued driver's license in the state ID. Okay, the next one is the Real ID. It meets all Real ID requirements, including to board domestic flights. It cannot be used to cross the border. You can renew early to avoid additional fees. It's available to citizens, permanent residencies, and all other individuals with proof of lawful status. And you would have to, it's a must to visit an office. The difference between that and the standard ID is not accepted for federal purposes, including boarding domestic flights after October 2021. I just want to clarify this. Prior to COVID, it was going to be October of 2020, but they've extended it for a year. So you can renew online or by mail, except for commercial driver's licenses, the CDIs. Most people get confused. Do I really need to get a Real ID? No, Real ID is not required. If you're not have any intention to fly domestically, or if you have no plans to enter a federal building or work at a nuclear power plant, you may not need a real ID. Again, the deadline for that, for the real ID, if you do want it, is October 1, 2021. What other forms of identification can I use? You may use a valid non-expired ID from the list below. It can either be a US passport or a US passport card, a DHS Trusted Traveler's Card, Global Entry, Nexus, Sentry, or FAST. US Department of Defense ID, including IDs issued to dependents. If you have a permanent resident card, if you have a border crossing card, if you have a state issued enhanced driver's, if you have foreign government issued passports, US merchant mariner credentials, federally recognized tribal issued photo ID, the HSPD 12 PIV card, Canadian provincial driver's license or Indian and Northern Affairs Canada card, transportation worker identification credential, or US Citizenship and Immigration Service Employment Authorization card, which is an I-766. I mentioned earlier in the call to Crystal that we do have a handout with some of this information that I will be sending to Crystal, and she will have them available if you wanted to stop by the library at any time to pick them up. I'll try to get them out in the mail this week. So real ID identification documents. All documents must be original. Photocopies are not accepted. You must have proof of lawful presence. You must present one. You must also have a proof of a social security number. You must present one. Proof of New York residency. You must present 2 of these items. And there is a webpage that you can go that's down here. I know it's kind of small, but again, if you stop by the library, we will be giving the pamphlets out. Common proof of identity, these must bear the applicant's legal name and date of birth. So a US passport, a certificate of naturalization or citizenship, US birth certificates issued by a state or local government, a consular report of birth aboard, which is a CRBA. These are required documents. The names must match. Your name must match on all your documents unless your name changed due to marriage, divorce, or a legal name change. If you have a middle name or suffix, at least one document must show the full name. The document you select must show the full first name, full middle name, if applicable, and the full last name with suffix, if applicable. This full name will appear on your New York State license ID. If you want a different name to appear, you would have to bring a government-issued proof of name change with you to the DMV office. An example, marriage certificate, divorce decree, or court-ordered change of name. Again, these are the required documents. Cannot be used: certificate of marriage, church marriage certificates. Common proof of Social Security, the full matching name again and Social Security number must be listed. The Social Security card, ineligibility letter from Social Security Administrative issued within 30 days of your DMV visit, a federal or New York State income tax W-2 with full Social Security number, or a federal or New York State income tax or earnings statement, SSA 1099, with the full Social Security number on it is also required documents. Cannot be used: Social Security stubs, or Medicare card. Now, I know when I went to get mine, I had to get it this past November. So many people in line said that they've made 2 or 3 different trips to the DMV because they did not have the proper documents. So please make sure that you have these. This will be recorded so you can go back and review it to make sure when you do go, you have the information that is required. Common proof of residency. You could use a utility bill with the address of residence clearly stated in the applicant's name. You could utilize a bank statement with the applicant's name and address of residence. If you're a homeowner or a renter's insurance policy for the applicant's home or apartment with the applicable applicant's name and address of residence that is currently in effect, or a lease agreement current in effect. These are all that you can use as required documents. Cannot be used. Insurance cards. Okay. The why. Before we explore what you will need to present, please understand these are federal requirements and cannot be altered. You need to be patient. Do not deviate from the checklist. If you are missing your birth certificate, you may visit this website to order an official copy. I know my sister just went through this. Her birthday was August 8th. She misplaced hers, so she went to this website. I took it right off of this slideshow to advise her. She received it, and she just received her real ID in the mail, I think, Monday. What's next? Real ID. Again, the deadline is October 1st, 2021. Check the expiration date in your license or state ID. If it expires before 10/1 of 21, convert to Real ID upon renewal. If it expires after 10/1/21 and you do not have a valid U.S. passport, you should consider converting so you are not restricted from flying or entering into federal buildings. If you have a valid U.S. passport, you can wait until your license renewal date to obtain the Real ID. Just be sure to bring your passport along. And again, it has to be a valid passport. Cost for Real IDs, there's no additional cost to get a Real ID. All normal transaction fees still apply. So it gives the breakdown right there. How long they're good for. Under age 62, your next birthday is within the next 6 months. They're saying 4 years, $9. So it does give you the breakdown. And also for driver license renewals. Class D or D is $64.50. And it gives the year, how many years it's good for. Do we have any questions?
One thing, I'm not sure if you're going to go over it, is what is the difference between a real ID and an enhanced ID?
Okay, got it right here. Okay, Real ID is a government designation that ensures state-issued driver's license and other forms of identification meet minimal federal requirements. Again, Real ID is marked on it. Again, the difference between the two is one, you can travel international or you can travel domestic, and the other one is you can travel internationally. Correct, Barb?
Yeah, I think the main difference is that with an enhanced license, you can cross the Canadian border by car without a passport.
Right, you can use to cross US border from Canada, Mexico, and some Caribbean countries, correct?
Yes, and also on a cruise ship. So
Right.
What you could do is either have a real ID, but bring along your passport to do those things. But if you don't want to bring your passport, you would need an enhanced license to cross those borders by land or sea.
Correct. What I'll do just to try to clarify it, because I know it is very confusing, I'll go through just ID features, and then if they're standard, real ID, or enhanced, and maybe this will help. Thank you, Barb, for helping out there.
You're welcome.
Can use for photo ID purposes, standard, yes. Real ID, yes. And enhanced, yes. Is it acceptable for federal real ID purposes? Standard is no. Real ID is yes. And enhanced is yes. Can use to board a domestic flight within the US, not after a standard, not after October 1st, 2021. The real you can, and the enhanced you can. Can use to enter a federal building on a military base. Again, a standard, you're not able to after October 1st of 2021. With the real ID, yes, you can, and also with the enhanced. Is this helping a little bit more if I read through some of these?
Yes.
Okay. Can use to cross the US border from Canada, Mexico, and some of the Caribbean countries. A standard, no, you cannot. A real ID, you cannot. So that's the big difference right there between the real ID and the enhanced. So if you want to cross into the borders from Canada, Mexico, and some of the Caribbean countries, you're going to need an enhanced. Show your residential address where you live. It's yes, right across the board for standard, real ID, and enhanced. If you want to show your residential address where you live, again, straight across the board. Requires an office visit to get one if getting an ID for the first time. All of them do. Standard, real ID, and enhanced all require you to visit the office. Requires an office visit to replace or renew. You do not for a standard have to go into the office. For a real ID, no, unless you are changing from a standard, then you would have to. And then an enhanced is no, unless you are changing from a standard. Okay, and the cost difference, okay, for the transaction fee. Standard, it's the same, as a real ID is the same. The difference then, if you want to go from the real ID to the enhanced, it's an additional $30. And it will state display on the front of the document, not for federal purposes. And that's where they give the different symbols, either the flag, the real ID, the star, just to give you an idea. Some other information. Go ahead.
Can I ask you to go back to the slide that has the pictures between the two?
Sure. Oh, wait a minute. How'd I miss it? There it is. Is this the one you were looking at? Real ID?
Yes. Thank you. Keep going. Sorry to interrupt.
It's okay. I'll just cover a few other things that I did a little bit of research on. To visit a DMV office or complete your transaction by mail, if you have a license or permit from a different state, if you recently replaced your license, permit, or ID and have not received the new one in the mail yet, or if you have a temporary interim license, permit, or non-driver's ID, or if you cannot locate your documents numbers. Again, office procedures have changed due to COVID-19. We recommend most definitely that you connect with your DMV business at the office by mail in the country where you are a residency. So again, over age 21, enhanced, real ID, and standard. Under age 21, a standard. Okay. Also, I can send some different pictures than what you have right there. Right there, you're seeing the real ID and the standard one. Okay. What other questions do you have?
So was it the real ID is the only one that will be accepted for flying domestically starting next October?
Yes.
Okay. So the enhanced, they won't even accept that for.
Oh, no, you can use the enhanced to go domestic. Enhanced
Okay.
covers everything, just so you know.
Okay.
The enhanced, you can, go to different countries. You can do whatever you need to do. That covers you everywhere. That's for the additional $30 for that.
Okay. And you also mentioned that AAA just got approval to process some of these applications, right?
Yes, we're not sure of the definite date that's going into effect. In fact, I was on 3 of the calls today regarding this great information. And with that being said, we're going to start in 3 of our branches within New York City itself, and they'll expand once they get it going to the rest. So I'm sure that our one down in Long Island will also have this available, and you will see a lot of advertisement about this. I mean, it is huge. It's so successful right now up in Rhode Island and in Mass. I mean, they have it down to a science how to issue these and what's the ins and outs and so on and so forth. You can make appointments ahead of time. They have the system down and it's working very nice. So we're very pleased to see that this has gone through. We're just waiting for the dates and when it will be opened and the people will be trained. And I can send you off an email, Crystal, as soon as I find the definite dates on that.
Great, thank you. And people can find the applications to get a real ID from the DMV's website, correct?
That is correct. Mm-hmm.
I don't see any questions in the chat box.
No
Is there
questions?
anyone else that's on that has a question for us?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment, just based off of experience. DMV is very strict on all the documents that you need. And I'll just give you an example. I was trying to help my mother gather what she needed to get a real ID. And one of the proofs of address was a utility bill. And neither of us thought quick enough to realize she still mails her payment in. So she mailed the payment to the utility company with the stub, and the stub is what has your name and address. So she took what she had, and DMV, refused it, and they wouldn't accept it because even though she had her bill with her account number on it, it did not have her name and address. So there are no exceptions. So you want to be really careful. And I'm sure when AAA starts doing this, it's going to be the same thing. All your I's have to be dotted and your T's have to be crossed. So it's just something to keep in mind.
You are absolutely 100% correct, Barb. And I just know when I went complaining, I heard in line people saying this is my 3rd trip back, my 4th trip back. So that's why when we send out these brochures, it will have specifically what is required. But you think you're all lined up perfectly, and some people think, okay, I have a photocopy of this. No, it has to be the original.
Yes.
So, and they will they don't care if you waited in line. I think someone was the other day that with our team they were sharing with us in New Jersey, people were waiting since 5 a.m. to get into the DMV. So I know what AAA is offering in the near future is something that's going to be spectacular.
Mhm.
Patty, it's Jerry. I just had a comment as well. My sister-in-law tried to do it, but she took pictures of the documents put it on her phone, and she got refused. They want the actual, she said she felt bad. She loses a lot of things, so she said she didn't want to take the original documents with her, and she took all the pictures of it on her phone. And when she got to the DMV, they was like, "No, sorry,
Absolutely not.
yeah." So no phone pictures at all. Just a little.
No, I appreciate it because you
Okay.
can't stress it enough. You
Right.
think you have everything there and you are, crossing your T's and dotting your I's, and all of a sudden, and like I said, my sister just went, her birthday was August 8th, and she was in such a tizzy. I said, here, Lou, just made a copy of our presentation. So she was happy. She could not find her real birth certificate.
Well,
Yeah,
that's really a good link. It's a good link.
So she had
Patty,
applied for it.
hi, Patty. This is Janet. And something else to keep in mind is I use a PO box for my address. And when you're applying for an enhanced or real ID, you need to have a physical address on the bills and the documents that you are bringing with you to the DMV. No PO box. It has to be a physical address.
Another great point, Janet. Thank you.
Yep. And so this will be a great way, member benefit that you can do all your DMV services at our offices now.
I think it's great. I'm really excited for it coming to New York. So it'll help our travelers out greatly. So any other questions? Anyone else want?
Yeah, I just had another comment. When is this recording available, and can the recording be sent to somebody through a link?
Yeah, in a little, I don't know how many days, but within a week or so, usually we try to get the recordings up on the library's YouTube channel. So I
Okay.
can share that link with Patty after it's available, and then anyone can access it.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I appreciate your time, everyone. I hope it was helpful information that we provided to you. At any time, if you have any questions, feel free to stop in at a AAA, and they would be more than happy to answer your questions or help you in any way possible.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Crystal. I appreciate it very much. And as I mentioned early in the call, AAA offers many virtual webinars, so let us know and I can send you the list. And if your people in your area are interested, we would be more than happy to put on a presentation for you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, have a great evening, everyone. All right, take care.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.